In this intense courtroom moment, a routine traffic case quickly turns into a surprising confrontation. The defendant, David Zambrano, appears before the judge facing charges for driving without insurance and driving with a suspended license. Instead of addressing the charges directly, he tries to challenge the court's authority using unusual legal language, often linked to the sovereign citizen movement. Throughout the hearing, he repeatedly claims he is making a special appearance and argues that the court has no jurisdiction over him, insisting he is an owner of the land rather than a resident. However, the judge quickly shuts down these arguments, explaining that the charges are criminal matters and that the court absolutely has authority over the case. As the defendant continues using confusing legal phrases, the judge becomes frustrated and even questions whether he is competent to represent himself, especially since he cannot clearly understand the difference between criminal and civil law. In the end, the judge moves the case forward by setting a pretrial date and advises the defendant to resolve the issue by getting proper insurance and a valid driver's license.
David Zambrano.
How you doing today?
Doing all right. It's a Tuesday. We got lots to do and we're making progress. Mr. Zambrano, we've had a hard time getting you in here. We got a lot going on here. In file 251521, you got a ticket on July 29th for driving without insurance and no valid license in possession. Those are both written under state statute. On July 25th, you got charged with driving with an unregistered vehicle in file 1523. On July 14th, you got charged with driving suspended and unregistered vehicle. That one's under White Pigeon ordinance. So July was a bad month for you. Then we said this a couple times. The city or the village of White Pigeon in the July 14th case has agreed to dismiss the charges if you plead to allowing another to violate the motor vehicle code. I'm not sure what the county's position would be on the other charges. And frankly, I don't know why they didn't charge him with driving suspended on all 3 days. Let's take a look. And then you'd missed a date, and then they reset it, and I don't know what happened, but
Your Honor.
yes.
I'm appearing here today, pro se, in the special appearance sui juris and in propria persona. I respectfully assert my rights to represent myself and have my constitutional rights recognized and upheld throughout these proceedings.
All right, well, that's certainly your right.
Thank you, sir.
You live in South Haven?
Actually, I'm the sojourner of the land. I don't have a residency at the
Well, the reason I ask,
I once did,
if
sir.
I need to send you mail, I need to know where to send it.
Right now, I do not have an address.
All right. Well, you do certainly have a right to represent yourself, and I don't have a quarrel with that. What do you want me to do? Set these for a trial? Or set a pretrial on all of these? Some are under White Pigeon ordinance, some are under state statute. You can help alleviate this by getting insurance, getting a license. It looks like you have some out-of-state problems. And you haven't had anything on your Michigan record in a long time. 12 years or more. So how would you like me to proceed here?
What are the charges? Again, all the ones that.
Well, right now, you're not doing a very good job of representing yourself because you don't even know what you're charged with. Let me tell you again. You're charged with no insurance. That's a misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in jail, a fine of not less than $200 and not more than $500. That was on July 29th. On that same day, they charge you with no valid license in possession, even though your license is suspended. They didn't charge that. No operator's license in possession is a misdemeanor. It's punishable by up to 90 days in jail and a fine of up to $100. On July 25th, take a look at that one. No, that's the 29th. It's the same as the others. You got no insurance, no ops on person, and unregistered vehicle. That was on July 29th. And those are all under state. On July 14th, you got another ticket. Take a look at that one. 1560. And that one, they filed a formal complaint that alleges that you were driving suspended and you had an unregistered vehicle. And that is under White Pigeon ordinance. Driving suspended is a misdemeanor. It's punishable by up to 93 days in jail and a fine of up to $500. That carries 2 points and it requires that your license be suspended. And then they charge it, you have an unregistered vehicle. You could help all of these if you got insurance, a registered vehicle, and worked on getting your license back. So one thing I could do is set all these cases for a pretrial on the same day with the White Pigeon Village attorney and the county attorney and see if they can come to some resolution of all the charges. Is that acceptable to you?
Actually, no, I have a few questions I need answered before we proceed. I don't understand the nature and the cause of this action against me. And I'm, is this a civil or criminal? It's criminal.
All right. You were here with your mom and she's here with you. So it's good that you support each other. She asked me the same question, which points out to me that you're not qualified to represent yourself if you don't know the difference between a criminal matter and a civil matter. These are criminal matters. They could result in a jail sentence and a sanction on your driver's license.
Thank you, Your Honor. Should the record reflect this is a criminal action then?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I just got to look at my papers and stuff.
All right.
So my next question about it is, Constitution grants this court 2 types of jurisdictions.
Yes. All right, we're not going to get into this, what I call jabberwocky. It has no legal effect. I don't know where you get it or where your mother got it, from a online source or somebody that told you this, or they're giving you bad information. These are criminal matters. They're not terribly consequential. Normally you wouldn't go to jail for these, although they do carry a potential jail sentence. You don't necessarily subscribe to our system, but I certainly don't subscribe to whatever you got written on the paper there. I propose we set this for a pretrial and you try to get a registration and insurance and then come in and share it with the prosecutor and the city attorney and see if we can resolve everything. If we can't, we can set it for a trial, including a jury trial, I suppose. It's 2 different incidents. So it would have to potentially be 2 different cases. What I propose is you trying to do some things to get situated and have a pretrial with the city attorney and the county prosecutor.
Your Honor, I'm gonna have to object to that. Before we can proceed, I need to know, it's upon the authority of the Sixth Amendment, I need to know the nature and the cause of these charges. Could you tell me if it is a common law criminal
No, these are
jurisdiction?
statutory offenses written under the authority of the people of the state of Michigan. One of these is under the insurance code and one is under the motor vehicle code. The others are. And I don't really wish to engage in this discussion. We've got about 40 other people waiting for their case. And you want to talk to me about how many angels can fit on the head of.
You won't believe what happened in this courtroom. What was supposed to be a routine traffic case quickly turned into one of the most bizarre and dramatic confrontations you'll ever see. A man named David Zambrano showed up facing 2 serious charges: driving without insurance and driving with a suspended license. Pretty standard stuff, right? But what happened next? Well, that's what made this case go viral. Instead of addressing the charges directly, Zambrano launched into a series of arguments that seemed straight out of a legal fantasy. He began using complicated, almost theatrical phrases, insisting that he was making a special appearance. According to him, he wasn't a regular resident under the court's authority. No, he was something far more extraordinary, a so-called owner of the land. In his mind, this declaration somehow placed him above the law, immune to the charges he was facing. From the very beginning, it was clear that Zambrano had done his homework, of a very unusual kind. He had clearly studied the sovereign citizen movement, a group of people who believe that certain words, phrases, or legal technicalities can exempt them from government authority. And so, he repeated the same phrases again and again, trying to convince the judge that the court had no jurisdiction over him. He spoke with confidence, as though the words themselves carried some magical legal power. But here's the thing, in a real courtroom, confidence doesn't equal truth. The judge quickly recognized that Zambrano's arguments had no legal basis. Calmly, but firmly, the judge explained that the charges were criminal, not civil. That distinction is crucial, and it meant that the court absolutely had the authority to hear the case. No amount of fancy wording, no matter how convincing it sounded, could change that reality. And yet, Zambrano pressed on. He seemed convinced that if he just repeated the phrases enough times, the judge would have no choice but to dismiss the case. He insisted he was not subject to the court's authority, pointing to phrases he had memorized from obscure legal documents he found online. The courtroom had turned into a surreal scene. A man standing in front of the law, reciting lines that might have sounded impressive to a casual listener, but that had no weight in reality. The judge, showing both patience and exasperation, listened to the defendant for several minutes. Then, in a moment that became one of the most memorable parts of the hearing, the judge openly questioned Zambrano's ability to represent himself. Representing yourself in court is no small feat. It requires understanding procedures, knowing the law, and being able to make coherent arguments. But Zambrano clearly lacked a fundamental understanding of the difference between criminal and civil law. He had confused a traffic violation, a criminal matter, with the civil technicalities he was trying to invoke. It was at this point that the courtroom tension reached a new level. The judge called out the absurdity of Zambrano's arguments, describing them as meaningless legal jargon, and made it very clear that repeating the same phrases would not make the charges disappear. The words, special appearance, or owner of the land, were not shields against real-world consequences. The law, as the judge reminded everyone, operates on facts, rules, and responsibility, not on internet-based legal theories or misunderstood phrases. Even though Zambrano continued to push his arguments, the judge remained calm and in control. Instead of getting caught in endless back and forth about pseudo-legal technicalities, the judge focused on what actually mattered, the charges themselves. He reminded Zambrano that to resolve the situation, the simplest and most effective solution would be to obtain proper insurance and a valid driver's license. Simple steps, but ones that would prevent further legal trouble. The drama didn't end there. As the hearing continued, the judge set a pre-trial date, emphasizing that the case would move forward regardless of the defendant's attempts to avoid it. The courtroom had seen countless cases before, but this one stood out. From the judge's perspective, it was a clear example of how pseudo-legal arguments could confuse someone, but ultimately, the law cannot be bent by clever phrases alone. What made this moment go viral wasn't just the defendant's unusual claims, it was the clash between fantasy and reality. On one side, you had a man fully convinced that memorized phrases could grant him immunity. On the other, you had a judge representing the unmovable reality of the law, reminding everyone that responsibility and accountability matter far more than theatrics. Even after repeated warnings, Zambrano seemed genuinely surprised that the court didn't bend to his arguments. But this exchange highlights something important: confidence and knowledge are not the same. You can believe in something passionately, but if it's not grounded in reality, it won't hold up, especially in a courtroom. By the end of the hearing, the judge had firmly established the rules: follow the law, attend the pre-trial date, and take care of the basic legal requirements. The rest was up to Zambrano. The scene was equal parts dramatic, educational, and a little bit surreal. It's a powerful reminder to anyone watching that in real life, you can't outsmart the system with clever words alone. This case spread like wildfire online because it perfectly captured a courtroom showdown that almost felt scripted for drama. Viewers were fascinated by the bizarre claims, the back-and-forth tension, and the judge's no-nonsense approach. It's a story that's equal parts legal lesson and entertainment, a real-life example of how the law operates when someone tries to challenge it in ways that don't make sense. Ultimately, this courtroom exchange is a reminder: the law is clear, and attempts to bypass it through pseudo-legal arguments will not work. Whether it's driving without insurance, operating with a suspended license, or any other violation, there's no substitute for responsibility. The courtroom may tolerate a lot, but it won't bend for slogans, phrases, or online theories. And that's why this video went viral. It shows a clash between belief and reality, fantasy and law, and, most importantly, the consequences of trying to outsmart a system that doesn't play by illusions. David Zambrano walked in thinking he could talk his way out of trouble, but the court had other plans. And in the end, reality prevailed. If you've ever wondered what happens when someone tries to challenge authority with just words, this video is the perfect example. It's dramatic, tense, and surprisingly educational. And while it may feel entertaining, it's also a stark warning: legal responsibility is not optional, and fancy phrases won't save you. So as the pre-trial date approaches, we're left wondering, will David Zambrano finally take the advice, get his insurance and license, and resolve the matter? Or will we see more courtroom theatrics in the next hearing? One thing is certain: this case will be remembered for a long time, not just for the charges, but for the unforgettable courtroom showdown between fantasy and reality.
Two separate traffic offenses on two separate occasions. You have a right to have an attorney. I'd be happy to appoint one for you, but you don't want one. You want to represent yourself, which is your right, but you don't have the right to waste my time. So if you either want me to set it for a pretrial, I can do that. That would be my preference. Then you can sit down with both prosecutors, ask these questions, and see if it can be resolved. If it can't, we can set it for a trial, either in front of a judge or a jury. So what would you rather do here today?
Well, on the authority of the Sixth Amendment, I'm asking that the court discloses the jurisdiction that I ask.
I just did.
You said it's a statutory jurisdiction?
Yes, you're
Okay.
supremely unqualified to represent yourself in this matter because someone sold you a packet of information that has no relevance in the modern universe that we live in. So I'm gonna set this for a pretrial.
Your Honor, that would be practicing law from the bench if you proceed without me.
I'm a lawyer, I'm a judge, I practice law from the bench, I do it every day, all day. And
I'd like to, I do have a few more questions about the.
I don't have any more time to answer your questions. I have a question for you. What do you want me to do with it? Set it for a pretrial or set it for a trial?
Under a statutory jurisdiction, I've never heard of, I need to know where I can find the published rules of the criminal procedure under that.
Well, you can certainly find them on, they're in the public library. You just put the number of the citation, 257904 under the Michigan compiled laws. All right.
Was that
Mr. Stickley is the chief public defender. He's had an opportunity to talk with you. Mr. Stickley, what's your recommendation here?
My recommendation would be to set it for a pretrial. I'm happy to spend a few moments with this gentleman and show him where the statute is and
All right.
maybe where he can Google or library.
And he's entitled to have copies of each of the tickets and the complaints, and so he can see it. So if you'd like, we'll get copies of their tickets for you. You got the ticket, but there's a formal complaint. I'm going to set it joint with the city and county for 2 weeks, October 7. Mr. Stickley is the chief public defender, and he's not exactly representing you. He's here to make sure that your rights are protected. And he also can give you some advice and maybe point you in the direction of what you want to do. Again, it would be helpful if you would come in with insurance and a proper plate and perhaps an effort to get your license back. You don't want to stay on the driving suspended merry-go-round because it's very hard to get off of it. Once you get suspended, you live near White Pigeon. The other problem is I don't have an address for you, so I need a mailing address. When you go out to the, we can use your mom's address, but I'm going to need you to give the clerks some sort of address where we can send things to you.
Could you deliver it general delivery to the post office?
Well, you can give them that.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to want you to take him out, get him a proper notice for that pretrial on the 7th. Mr. Stickley will meet with you and get some of that information that you're looking for.